Some songs become classics, but the artists behind them slowly disappear.
One unforgettable hit, one incredible moment, and then almost complete silence.
Yet decades later, those same songs still fill dance floors, radio stations, and playlists around the world. What if I told you that some of the greatest R&B songs of the 1970s came from artists who never reached those heights again? Behind every one-hit wonder is a story of perseverance, heartbreak, unexpected success, and a legacy that refused to fade away. Welcome to R&B Blueprint. Today, we're counting down 10 forgotten 1970s R&B one-hit wonders you need to hear. These are the true, fact-check stories behind the songs that defined a generation. And by the time we reach number one, you'll discover the unbelievable hit that almost never happened, but changed music history forever. Number 10. The Floaters, Float On, 1977.
Libra, Aquarius, and my name is Red.
The summer of 1977. Disco had taken over America. Every record label wanted another dance floor anthem, another song that could keep people moving until sunrise. But inside a Detroit recording studio, 5 singers were about to record something completely different. There were no flashy dance routines, no earth-shaking vocal acrobatics, just a slow, hypnotic groove and a spoken introduction that every record executive believed was far too unusual for radio. Within months, that very introduction would become one of the most recognizable openings in R&B history. The Floaters weren't overnight sensations. Before they became known around the world, the group had spent years performing throughout Detroit, learning the hard lessons that came with chasing a recording career. Like so many talented vocal groups of the 1970s, they watched bigger acts dominate radio while they searched for the one record that could finally break through. That opportunity arrived when songwriter James Mitchell and producer Woody Wilson brought them Float On. It wasn't built around complicated harmonies or a powerful chorus. Instead, it asked each member to introduce himself with his zodiac sign, his favorite kind of woman, and a few deeply personal words. It was romantic, conversational, and unlike anything audiences had heard before.
In other words, and if you understand what I'm saying.
When Float On was released in 1977, industry expectations changed almost overnight. The single climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and reached number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart, becoming one of the biggest soul records of the year. Its success wasn't driven by Spectacle 6, it was driven by personality. Listeners felt as though the singers were speaking directly to them, turning a love song into something unexpectedly intimate. Radio stations couldn't ignore it, and soon the spoken introductions became just as famous as the melody itself. Decades later, those opening lines remain one of the most recognizable moments in classic R&B, proving that sometimes originality is more powerful than following trends.
Take my hand.
Ironically, the very song that made the Floaters unforgettable also overshadowed nearly everything they recorded afterward. They continued making music, but nothing captured lightning in a bottle the way Float On did. That's why many casual listeners remember the song, but not the remarkable story behind it. Yet its influence never disappeared. Artists have sampled it, filmmakers have referenced it, and generations of soul fans still smile the moment those introductions begin. Sometimes, one record doesn't just launch a career, it creates a moment that music history refuses to let go. And if you think that's an incredible story, the next artist found success with a love song so smooth that many listeners still have no idea who recorded it. Number 9. New Birth, Dream Merchant, 1975.
Back to me and make my hey, hey, mister.
Soul music was changing. Philadelphia soul was smoother than ever. Motown was evolving. Funk bands were beginning to dominate radio, and record labels wanted bigger rhythms, louder horns, and faster records. But tucked away inside a recording studio was a quiet love song that sounded almost too gentle for the times. It didn't demand your attention. It didn't explode through the speakers. Instead, it slowly wrapped itself around your emotions. Years later, thousands of music lovers would remember every note, yet surprisingly few would remember the remarkable group that recorded it.
I've got my pride back into
By the mid-1970s, New Birth had already earned a reputation as one of the most versatile bands in R&B. Unlike many groups of the era, they weren't built around just one singer. They blended powerful male and female vocals with an exceptional live band that could move effortlessly between funk, soul, jazz, and gospel. Their concerts became legendary because audiences never knew exactly what to expect. One night, they could ignite the room with hard-driving funk.
The next, they could bring complete silence with a heartfelt ballad.
That versatility became both their greatest strength and one of the reasons they never fit neatly into the industry's marketing machine. When the group recorded Dream Merchant, they weren't trying to chase the latest trend. Originally written by songwriter Larry Weiss, the song had already been recorded by others, but New Birth gave it an entirely new emotional depth. Their arrangements slowed everything down, allowing every lyric to breathe. The lead vocal carried genuine vulnerability instead of theatrical drama, while the lush orchestration created the feeling of a late-night conversation between two people desperately hoping love could still survive. It wasn't flashy, but sometimes authenticity leaves a deeper mark than spectacle. Released in 1975, Dream Merchant became one of New Birth's signature recordings, earning strong airplay on R&B radio and reinforcing the group's reputation as master interpreters of sophisticated soul. Although it never crossed over into massive pop success, the song quietly became a favorite among dedicated soul fans and radio DJs who appreciated timeless songwriting over commercial gimmicks. Decades later, collectors still rank it among the finest slow jams of the decade, and its emotional honesty continues to resonate with listeners discovering classic soul for the first time. Sometimes, the songs that don't dominate every chart are the ones that stay with you the longest.
Would you please do me a favor?
Number 8. William DeVaughn. Be thankful for what you got.
TV antennas in the back. But remember,
America was still recovering from economic uncertainty. Gas prices had risen. Families were tightening their budgets. Yet while the country worried about what it didn't have, one soft-spoken government employee was about to remind millions of people to appreciate what they already did. He wasn't a full-time musician. He wasn't chasing superstardom. In fact, he paid to record his own song because no record label believed in it. That decision didn't just change his life. It created one of the most enduring soul records ever made.
the white walls, though you may not drive.
William DeVaughn wasn't the typical aspiring recording artist. By day, he worked as a government employee while writing songs whenever inspiration struck. Music wasn't paying the bills, but he believed in the message he wanted to share. Instead of waiting years for a recording contract that might never come, DeVaughn invested nearly $900 of his own money, a significant amount at the time, to finance a recording session in Philadelphia. He hired members of the legendary MFSB Studio Collective, whose musicians had helped define the famous Philadelphia soul sound. Together, they crafted Be Thankful for What You Got, a song that rejected materialism in favor of gratitude, delivering one of the simplest yet most profound messages in R&B history.
When the single was released in 1974, nobody expected what happened next.
Without the backing of a major promotional campaign, Be Thankful for What You Got spread through word of mouth and heavy radio airplay. The song climbed to #1 on the Billboard R&B chart and reached #4 on the Billboard Hot 100, selling more than 1 million copies. Listeners connected with lyrics like "Diamond in the Back," "Sunroof Top," not because they celebrated wealth, but because they reminded people that dignity and happiness weren't measured by possessions. The record became an anthem during a decade when many Americans needed that reminder more than ever. The success of Be Thankful for What You Got turned William DeVaughn into a household name almost overnight. Yet despite releasing other quality recordings, he never matched the extraordinary impact of his breakthrough hit. Over the years, however, the song found a second life. Artists from across hip-hop, R&B, jazz, and neo-soul sampled or covered it, while filmmakers and television producers continued introducing it to new audiences. Nearly every generation discovers it all over again, proving that great messages never grow old. William DeVaughn may have been labeled a one-hit wonder, but with one heartfelt recording, he gave soul music one of its greatest lessons. Gratitude never goes out of style. Number 7. Creative Source, I'd Find You Anywhere, 1973. The soul music landscape was overflowing with powerhouse groups. The stylistics were dominating slow jams. The Spinners were climbing the charts. The OJs were redefining Philadelphia soul. For a young vocal group trying to break through, there was almost no room left. Yet hidden beneath the biggest names of the decade was a record so beautifully arranged that many longtime soul collectors still call it one of the greatest forgotten love songs of the 1970s. The tragedy wasn't that it lacked quality. The tragedy was that history simply moved on too quickly. Creative Source had already built a reputation long before casual listeners knew their name. Formed in Los Angeles by producer Michael Stokes, the group featured several gifted vocalists whose harmonies blended gospel warmth with polished West Coast soul. Rather than relying on flashy performances, they specialized in smooth arrangements that allowed emotion to lead every lyric. During sessions for one of their early albums, the group recorded "I'd Find You Anywhere," a heartfelt declaration of unconditional love. There were no gimmicks, no elaborate production tricks, just elegant instrumentation, rich harmonies, and a melody designed to let the vocals shine. When the record reached R&B radio, DJs immediately recognized its quality. The song earned steady regional airplay and became especially popular among listeners who preferred sophisticated soul over dance records. Although it never became a major crossover hit on the Billboard Hot 100, I'd Find You Anywhere strengthened Creative Source's growing reputation as one of the finest harmony groups of the decade. Critics praised the group's vocal chemistry, while musicians admired the polished arrangements that showcased every member, instead of focusing on a single star. It became the kind of record that spread quietly from one soul fan to another, earning respect without dominating headlines. Unfortunately, talent alone doesn't always guarantee lasting fame. As disco began reshaping popular music during the mid-1970s, many beautifully crafted soul groups struggled to compete with changing trends and shifting radio formats.
Creative Source continued recording and performing, but they never received the widespread recognition their musicianship deserved.
Today, I'd Find You Anywhere remains a hidden treasure for collectors of classic R&B, a reminder that some of the greatest songs are discovered long after the charts stop spinning. Sometimes, music doesn't need to be everywhere to become unforgettable. It simply needs to find the right listener. Number 6. The Sylvers 6. Boogie Fever, 1976. I think it's going around. Disco was becoming impossible to ignore. Every major record label was searching for the next dance floor anthem, while radio stations competed to find records that could keep listeners moving from sunset until sunrise. But inside one of the busiest recording studios in California, a family of 9 talented brothers and sisters was about to prove they weren't simply another teen act. They had already spent years performing together, growing up in front of audiences across America. What nobody realized was that one irresistible groove would soon transform them from a respected family group into one of the hottest names in R&B. The Sylvers had been performing professionally since childhood. Raised in Memphis before relocating to Los Angeles, the siblings learned harmony, stage presence, and musicianship long before most children their age had even considered a career in entertainment. Throughout the early 1970s, they built a loyal following with soulful ballads and polished performances, but the industry still viewed them as talented youngsters searching for their defining record. That changed when producers Freddie Perrin and Kanye St. Louis introduced them to Boogie Fever. Built around an infectious bass line, energetic rhythm guitar, and an unforgettable chorus, the song perfectly captured the excitement sweeping through dance clubs without sacrificing the smooth vocal harmonies that had become the Sylvers' trademark. Released in early 1976, Boogie Fever became an instant phenomenon. The single reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the Billboard R&B singles chart, and sold more than 1 million copies, earning gold certification. Radio stations embraced it, clubs played it relentlessly, and television appearances introduced the family to audiences around the world. More importantly, the song proved that the Sylvers weren't simply riding the disco wave 6, they were helping shape it. Their youthful energy, combined with disciplined musicianship and polished production, allowed them to compete alongside some of the biggest acts of the decade, while inspiring countless young family groups that followed. Ironically, the success of Boogie Fever became both a blessing and a challenge. Although the Sylvers continued releasing successful records, including Hotline and High School Dance, none reached quite the same cultural impact as their signature hit. As musical trends shifted toward the end of the decade, the family gradually faded from mainstream radio, but their influence never disappeared. Today, Boogie Fever remains one of the defining dance records of the 1970s, regularly featured in films, television shows, sporting events, and nostalgic playlists. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest family stories aren't told around a dinner table. They're told through a song that gets generations of people dancing together. Number 5, Brainstorm 6, Lovin' Is Really My Game. 1977. By the late 1970s, disco had become more than just Music 6. It was a movement. Every week, another dance anthem climbed the charts, and record companies were racing to find the next million-selling hit. But hidden among the household names was a 7-piece band from Detroit that possessed something many of their competitors didn't: extraordinary musicianship. They weren't built around gimmicks or celebrity. They let the music speak first. And with one electrifying record, Brainstorm created a dance floor masterpiece that should have made them superstars, but somehow became one of the greatest forgotten gems of the decade. Brainstorm was formed in Detroit, a city already famous for producing legendary soul acts. The group's lineup featured exceptional instrumentalists alongside powerhouse vocalist Belita Woods, whose rich, commanding voice immediately set the band apart. Before recording Lovin' Is Really My Game, Brainstorm had earned respect performing across the Midwest, but national recognition remained just out of reach. During sessions for their debut album, producers wanted a song that blended sophisticated funk with the elegance of emerging disco. The result was Lovin' Is Really My Game, An explosive combination of tight rhythm guitar, shimmering strings, driving percussion, and one of the most captivating vocal performances of the era. It wasn't simply made for dancing six. It was crafted to keep dance floors moving all night. Released in 1977 on Taboo Records, Lovin' Is Really My Game quickly became a favorite in clubs across America and Europe. The single climbed into the top 20 of the Billboard R&B chart, while earning significant attention in discos from New York to London. DJs loved its extended groove, musicians admired its polished arrangement, and dancers embraced its infectious energy. Although it didn't achieve the crossover pop success enjoyed by some of the era's biggest disco records, the song earned a loyal following that has only grown stronger with time. Today, it remains a staple among rare groove collectors, classic disco DJs, and crate diggers who consider it one of the finest dance records ever pressed. Ironically, Brainstorm never received the mainstream recognition their talent deserved. As musical tastes shifted in the early 1980s, the band struggled to maintain commercial momentum, and many casual listeners gradually forgot the name behind the music. But the song never disappeared. Lovin' Is Really My Game continued thriving in underground clubs, was rediscovered by DJs around the world, and influenced generations of house, dance, and neo-soul producers who admired its sophisticated groove. Decades later, the record still sounds remarkably fresh, a reminder that true musical craftsmanship never goes out of style. Sometimes, history overlooks incredible artists. Fortunately, great songs have a way of finding new audiences long after the spotlight fades. Number 4. Faith, Hope, and Charity, To Each His Own, 1975. Some songs don't need explosive introductions. They don't rely on flashy guitar solos or booming orchestras to capture your attention. Instead, they quietly find their way into your heart. That's exactly what happened with To Each His Own. Long before streaming playlists and viral videos, this smooth R&B anthem spread from one radio station to another, becoming a favorite among soul lovers across America. But while millions fell in love with the record, very few remembered the remarkable trio behind it. Their story is proof that sometimes the music becomes legendary, while the artists slowly fade into history. Faith, Hope, and Charity was formed in New York during the late 1960s, bringing together singers Brenda Hilliard, Albert Bailey, and Diane Destry. Their harmonies were polished, their stage performances were elegant, and their sound blended soul, funk, gospel, and the growing influence of disco. After several modest successes, the trio was still searching for the one record that could elevate them beyond the R&B audience. That opportunity arrived when producers decided to reinterpret To Each His Own, a song originally made famous by the Ink Spots in the 1940s. Instead of simply copying the original, the group transformed it into a silky mid-tempo soul groove, modernizing the arrangement while preserving the song's timeless message about accepting life's different paths. Released in 1975, To Each His Own exceeded expectations. The single climbed to number 1 on the Billboard R&B Singles Chart and reached the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming the biggest hit of the group's career. Radio embraced its sophisticated production, while audiences connected with its uplifting message and effortless vocal chemistry. At a time when dance records were becoming louder and more elaborate, Faith, Hope, and Charity proved that elegance could still dominate the airwaves. The song became a staple on soul radio, wedding playlists, and late-night slow jams, earning the trio their place in R&B history. Ironically, Despite achieving their biggest commercial success, Faith, Hope, and Charity never enjoyed another crossover hit on the same scale. As disco evolved and musical tastes shifted toward the end of the decade, the trio gradually disappeared from mainstream radio. Yet, to each his own, refused to disappear with them. The record continued receiving airplay on classic soul stations, appeared on countless compilation albums, and introduced new listeners to one of the smoothest vocal performances of the 1970s. It's a reminder that commercial fame is temporary, but a beautifully crafted song can outlive every trend. Sometimes, the greatest legacy an artist leaves behind isn't a long list of hit records. It's one unforgettable performance that continues touching hearts decades later. Number 3, L.T.D. Every Time I Turn Around, Back in Love Again.
I get mixed emotion. I want to love you forever.
The disco era was reaching its peak, but beneath the flashing lights and packed dance floors, another revolution was quietly unfolding. Soul music was becoming more polished, more sophisticated, and more emotionally honest. Hidden inside one recording studio was a band that had spent years paying its dues without receiving the recognition many believed it deserved. They had the musicians, they had the songs. Most importantly, they had a young lead singer whose voice could stop an audience in its tracks. What nobody knew was that one record would not only launch the band's biggest hit, it would introduce the world to one of R&B's greatest voices. L.T.D, 6 short for Love, Togetherness and Devotion 6, had already built a loyal following through relentless touring alongside major artists. Every performance sharpened their chemistry, but commercial success remained just beyond their reach. Standing at the front of the band was Jeffrey Osborne, a vocalist blessed with extraordinary range, effortless control, and the rare ability to make every lyric sound personal. Producer Bobby Martin believed the group had everything needed to compete with the biggest names in soul, but they still lacked the one record that could separate them from countless talented bands fighting for radio attention. During sessions for the album Something to Love, that record finally arrived in the form of Every Time I Turn Around, Back in Love Again. Built around a driving bass groove, crisp horn arrangements, and Osborne's soaring vocal performance, the song immediately felt different from everything else the band had recorded. Released in 1977, the gamble paid off almost instantly. Every Time I Turn Around, Back in Love Again, climbed to number 1 on the Billboard R&B singles chart, while reaching the top 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming L.T.D's biggest crossover success. Radio stations embraced its infectious rhythm, dance clubs added it to heavy rotation, and audiences couldn't get enough of Jeffrey Osborne's remarkable vocal performance. Critics praised the band's musicianship, while fellow artists admired the record's seamless blend of funk, soul, jazz, and disco. More importantly, the song proved that L.T.D wasn't simply another dance band chasing trends. They were musicians capable of creating timeless records. For Jeffrey Osborne, it became the performance that opened the door to one of the most successful solo careers in 1980s R&B. Ironically, the very success that elevated Jeffrey Osborne also marked the beginning of a new chapter. Just a few years later, he left L.T.D to pursue a solo career, recording classics like On the Wings of Love, Stay With Me Tonight, and You Should Be Mine, the woo-woo song.
While Osborne became a superstar, many casual listeners gradually forgot the band that first introduced him to the world.
Yet, Every Time I Turn Around, Back in Love Again never disappeared. It remains one of the defining R&B recordings of the late 1970s, celebrated by soul fans, sampled by modern producers, and played on classic radio stations around the globe. Sometimes, A hit record doesn't just create a moment. It introduces a voice that generations will never forget.
Every time I lose, that's something else I discover.
Number 2, A Taste of Honey, Boogie Oogie Oogie, 1978.
Listen to the music and let your body flow.
Disco was no longer just filling dance floors. It had become a global phenomenon. Every week, another song claimed the top of the charts, and record companies were desperate to find the next crossover smash. But inside a modest recording studio, 2 women were quietly challenging an industry that rarely gave female musicians the spotlight. They weren't simply singers. They wrote their own music, played their own instruments, and refused to fit the mold the business had created for them. What began as a simple bass riff during rehearsal would soon become one of the most recognizable grooves in music history and launch one of the biggest one-hit wonders R&B has ever produced.
Let me tell you, you are no exception. Boogie no more. Boogie.
A Taste of Honey was founded by Janice Marie Johnson and Hazel Payne, 2 gifted musicians who met while studying music in Los Angeles. Long before they signed a recording contract, the duo spent years performing at military bases, local clubs, and talent competitions, earning respect for their musicianship rather than their image. At a time when women were often expected to stand at the microphone while session musicians played the instruments, Johnson proudly carried her bass guitar to every performance. During rehearsals for their debut album, she began experimenting with a playful bass line that immediately caught everyone's attention. That groove became the foundation of Boogie Oogie Oogie. The lyrics came together quickly. The melody practically wrote itself. And although the band enjoyed recording it, nobody involved believed they were creating one of the defining songs of the disco era. Released in the summer of 1978, Boogie Oogie Oogie exploded across radio almost immediately. The single climbed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, topped the Billboard Hot Soul Singles chart, reached the top 10 in several countries, and eventually sold more than 2 million copies, earning platinum certification. Critics praised its irresistible rhythm, but musicians focused on something else entirely: the bass line. Janice Marie Johnson's unforgettable opening groove became one of the most studied and celebrated bass performances in popular music. DJs couldn't keep the record off their turntables, dance clubs played it every night, and radio stations embraced its perfect balance of funk, disco, and R&B. More than 4 decades later, that opening bass line remains instantly recognizable within just a few notes. Ironically, despite creating one of the biggest records of the decade, A Taste of Honey never again reached the extraordinary commercial heights of Boogie Oogie Oogie. They later enjoyed success with their Grammy Award-winning cover of Sukiyaki, but to millions of listeners, their identity would forever be tied to the song that introduced them to the world. Yet their legacy extends far beyond one hit. They helped break barriers for female musicians, proved women could lead funk and R&B bands with complete artistic authority, and inspired generations of bass players to pick up the instrument. Sometimes, one unforgettable groove is enough to change music forever, and sometimes, one song becomes so timeless that people remember every note, even if they forget the remarkable artists who created it. Number 1, Anita Ward, Ring My Bell, 1979. Sometimes, history isn't made by the song everyone expects to become a hit. Sometimes, it begins with a forgotten demo sitting on a producer's shelf, waiting for the right voice to bring it to life. By the end of the 1970s, disco had reached its commercial peak. Record labels were searching for bigger choruses, louder productions, and the next international sensation. But no one inside Warner Records imagined that a young singer who had planned to become a school teacher was about to record one of the defining songs of an entire generation. If one earlier recording session had gone according to plan, Ring My Bell would never have belonged to Anita Ward. Before music changed her life, Anita Ward had very different ambitions. Raised in Memphis, she developed her voice singing gospel in church before studying psychology in college, hoping to build a career in education. Music remained a passion, but superstardom wasn't the goal. Then songwriter and producer Frederick Knight entered the picture. Years earlier, Knight had written Ring My Bell for a much younger singer, Stacey Ladisaw, as a lighthearted teenage love song. When contractual complications prevented that recording from happening, the song was left unfinished. Rather than abandon it, Knight completely rewrote the lyrics, transformed the arrangement into a sophisticated dance record, and invited Anita Ward into the studio. She believed she was recording another album track. No one, not Ward, not Knight, and not the record label, expected they were creating a song that would soon conquer the world. Released in the spring of 1979, Ring My Bell became an unstoppable global phenomenon. The single reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, #1 on the Billboard Soul Singles Chart, and #1 in the United Kingdom, while also topping charts across Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Spain, and several European countries. It eventually sold millions of copies worldwide, becoming one of the biggest crossover hits of the disco era. Much of its success came from its innovative production. The electronic drum effects, shimmering synthesizers, and crisp rhythm section gave the record a futuristic sound that stood apart from nearly everything else on radio. Combined with Anita Ward's effortless vocal performance, the result was a song that appealed equally to R&B fans, disco audiences, and mainstream pop listeners. Nearly 50 years later, the opening notes remain instantly recognizable, proving that true classics never lose their magic. Ironically, Anita Ward never again experienced the extraordinary commercial success of Ring My Bell.
Like many artists, remembered for one defining hit, she spent years watching that single overshadow an otherwise impressive career.
But perhaps that's exactly what makes her story so remarkable. She didn't need a catalog of chart-topping records to leave an unforgettable mark on music history. One extraordinary performance was enough. Today, Ring My Bell continues to appear in films, television series, sporting events, commercials, and playlists around the world, introducing new generations to the song that almost never happened. It all came down to one songwriter who refused to throw away an unfinished idea, one singer who walked into the studio without realizing history was waiting, and one recording session that gave the world a timeless classic. Sometimes, one song is all an artist needs to become immortal. Every song you've heard today has something in common. They weren't just hits. They were moments in time, records that captured an era, introduced unforgettable voices, and proved that greatness isn't measured by the number of chart toppers an artist records. Sometimes, one incredible song is enough to leave a legacy that outlives generations.